By raise of hands. Interesting. How many are investors, corporates, startups? Just in the wrong panel? Okay. Good. I see you there. Okay. So, Mel, maybe just starting with you. So, the space is growing really quickly. And we're seeing where the industry is going and kind of jumping between automotive into mobility, into smart cities. What role do you see your company play in 10 years in this space?
Well, I mean, if you take a look at railroad, because there will be new applications like the flying car or other kind of transportation that means.
In the large aircraft passenger business, Airbus will still be the leader. There will be even more urbanization, there will be more mega cities and more people will fly. And therefore, we are lucky to be in that growing business. On the other hand, a confluence of technological developments such as electrification will lead to disruption in something that one might call today urban air mobility, but whatever will take people through congested areas, through air. In that sense, we know that the disruption is coming, and we prefer to be the ones disrupting it than waiting for others to disrupt us. And in that area, it is not only about the vehicle, it is about a whole system that that will transform in the next 10 years. So it will happen. The dream of getting out of congested cities and flying around will happen.
Excellent. And by the way, we're all sitting here jealous that you can wear a dress and we need to wear shirts. And no, we didn't match the white, I just noticed that. So yeah, just to finalize that round, where do you see your role in 10 years? Will be there parking in 10 years?
Actually, yes, but about 10% of what we are having right now. I'll take you 10 years from now. We believe that, actually it will be more 15 years from now, we believe that nobody will be allowed to drive.
15 years?
Yeah, it's like if you want to ride a horse, you go for a park. So if you want to ride a car, you go for a park. The industry will be shifting dramatically to autonomous car. And autonomous car needs to park, needs to fuel, needs to wash, needs to have insurance, needs to be taken care of for all kinds of car care. And this is where Pango is. We are building an infrastructure for service aggregation. All you need for the car, and then if the autonomous car goes through a toll road, the service operator of this autonomous car, which can be a company with 10 cars or let's say a fleet of 1,000 cars, they don't need to run and do agreements with all kinds of service provider. They need to just have one agreement with Pango, and we'll be the one that have the multiple service agreements with all the companies or service providers all around.
So Pango will become a service company?
Right now, we already.
Already. So a question, Alyssa, on a point you just mentioned, and also to Guido. So where we think about congestion and where the city is going, the new third dimension, of course, is space and vertical mobility. So in DLD 2028, are we all going to come here with our own Airbus flying vehicles?
That is actually a question that depends not only on Airbus. So we believe it will happen only if the technology develops. We have some challenges in, again, electrification. It is way beyond whether we can build a vehicle. We will build a vehicle. However, it also implies developments in services, support, flight ops, ground infrastructure, And together with a number of enablers, such as regulation, government policy, are cities ready for it? For example, cities weren't ready for Uber. We all know that, right? Many cities weren't. I don't know if they're ready for Pango. But I don't think they'll make the same mistakes. So if cities can keep up with the technology developments, I do believe that at least some of us will use that mode of transport.
So Guido, just to follow up on that, we see, and Alisa mentioned how regulator plays such a big role in making that happen. If you could ask one thing from the regulator on a state level or a city level, what would it be?
To have regulations. It's
Work with us.
It's
Yeah, she's not going to drive anymore anyway. But until Pango takes over basically everything, and Mel, I'm going to refer the same question to you in a second, how do you think you can monetize, because you gather a lot of data about movement of people, about location, about condensity. What are the new ways that you're going to monetize the data that you're gathering that you're not already doing now?
Okay, excellent question. Actually, Pango, we know, don't tell anyone, but we know everything. We know where you live, we know where you work, we know how much time you spend when you go shopping, and we can tell, we did, for example, a quick analysis for a small company called IKEA. Just to give you an idea, we look about certain neighborhood around the store between 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock afternoon, and we saw it along a couple of weeks, and we saw a real trend that in one neighborhood there is a huge decrease on Tuesday. So, for example, instead of doing a promotion for the whole geographic around the store, you can do it only for a certain neighborhood. Instead of doing a promotion for a whole week, you can do it only for Tuesday, and by that you can save a lot of time. For mobility, for example, we can tell municipalities for a certain road how many cars are passing during 8 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock in the morning, and where are they coming from. Percentage from this city, from that neighborhood, and from that neighborhood. And then we can, cities can plan where to build a parking lots, and then from where to take public transportation, and so forth. More sophisticated information on BI that we can have is, for example, we can show you a trend for between two different merchants, competitive merchant, and we know how many percent.
Shaban.
Well, if you take a look at the transport system,
individuals as tokens, and then there is like a firewall between private information and the individual that is traveling.
Alex, I want to touch on a point that you mentioned before about the need for a new level of components and reliability, because we're gonna be the car basically is going to be driven automatically 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. In Israel, 364. We have Yom Kippur, but we speak about the benefits. But what do you think are the constraints, hurdles, or even the major threats with future mobility? And to make it hard for everyone, I will take off the table the fact that Uber just got the roads more compact with cars. So let's put that aside and think about other threats. You stand more in traffic now because of Uber, not less. Alex.
A good threats for us, for the industry, or situations we have, is about how to have the right materials, raw materials. Battery technology is one of the key drivers for e-mobility. So how to have the right battery technology in place with the right capacity and the right, let's say, raw material source. When we see that we have some kind of materials of high concern, like cobalt in a battery is high demand, but the resources are limited, then we have to see how these cobalt get mined. So we have to ask second and third questions, and not only about there's a plug, I plug my car, I charge my car, and that's fine. We have to see how to generate the energy, how to transport the energy from A to B. In Germany, we have a lot of discussions now from the North Sea to the South, how to get the energy done and transported. So a lot of fights against cabling, yes, no, under the earth or on the highways. So it's many questions which the industry really drive now to how to give the right answer. Or can I charge in one street on the lights all the cars in an immediate short time? Is enough energy present there, or will the whole system die out of power? So these are many detailed questions which are at least a success factor or really a blocking factor going further. So it's many things we hear at times. It's a yes and no thing. It's a question of how to make the best thing happen in my ecosystem where I am. An example is, we heard a guy from Mercedes-Benz, when I'm right, they denied to say we make changeable batteries. In China now, they go a different way. They say we make changeable batteries because in the meantime we can charge them very slow, and we will have a transportation unit. We had it already in Germany, I guess in the 70s, changeable batteries for transportation. So it helps you to use the energy when you have the energy and not when you need the energy.
So in the short term, this future mobility trend is better for planet Earth or worse?
If we take care about how do we generate the energy, how clean is it by generating the needed energy, then of course, if we do this and take care about how do we get the energy.
Mario, loop, where you can move people faster from point A to point B, San Francisco to Los Angeles, and in the future, maybe even between countries. How do you see it in Airbus? Is it a real threat, and how are you dealing with that?
To the contrary, we see it as a major opportunity to expand and transform our business. As you know, we are already testing the market opportunities for such transportation with Boom. We are for now using helicopters right now in Mexico City, in Sao Paulo, to test how viable the business model is. We know that we will not be using standard helicopters in the future, but we know already that the business is there. With electrification, the cost of flying will be about 1/4 of what it is today.
Commercially? Helicopter.
Helicopter,
okay.
Right? And the willingness to pay is there. Of course, it will start with probably with certain cities where there is a population, where there is a willingness to pay at the level like any other new technology. But that will happen. So I don't see it as a threat. We see it as an opportunity, and we are pushing ourselves to be on the front end of that wave.
And do you see a shortage in actually pilots that are going to run before everything will go autonomous? And I think in the air will be longer than maybe on the car. Do you see a shortage in pilots that can actually operate on a city level?
Well, shortages of pilots is already something that large aircraft operators are facing today with the growth in Asia, for example. Airlines do face a shortage of pilots. I think that is not a question to be answered today. It is something that it will, the way we move forward depends again how fast the technology moves, and how much regulation moves, and how much adoption. So we will be ready for the change.
Excellent. And by the way, just as a fun fact, the numbers that we have is that in the next 20 years, Airbus and others will manufacture around 30,000 airplanes, new airplanes. That means 300,000 new pilots. So if anyone want to do a transfer of jobs or to do a career change and you want to fly stuff, that's the time. I want to go into the notion of consortiums. So consortiums, in what we saw in cellular that really kind of kick-started the industry in the 90s were GSM. And GSM was companies coming together, thinking about the regulation, building the protocol, and then starting building solutions on top of that. Are you seeing, and this is true for the entire panel, are you seeing consortiums already in the making, or consortiums that should be created in the near and mid-future in order to kind of jump the industry forward?
I don't know if actual consortiums, and it depends what we mean a bit by that word, but we are surely moving away from supply chain to ecosystems of partnerships. So you were talking about the challenges. One of the challenges that I'm trying to address is how do we all work together in collaboration? And this is not a kumbaya call. Of course, there are issues of IP, and we will never be in a completely open innovation environment, but we do not have all answers. We need a whole ecosystem of partners to resolve these complex issues. And I think this is a good example that the mobility service industry, good for you, you're in it already. I think the numbers are $1 trillion by 2030. We all know that seamless travel is where we're going. So it is obviously going to be brought to the world by some type of a consortium in our present terms, but who knows what it will look like in 10 years from now.
So Airbus not buying Boeing in the near future? No, I'm joking, you don't need to answer that. Any more thoughts from the panel?
Yeah,
Marius, when we imagined a smart city and future mobility, how you do open innovation and collaboration between corporates and startups. Never easy, there's a lot of friction and frustration, and that corporate versus startups difficulty is not easy to overcome. And I would like to, if you could share your thoughts on how to do it in a more productive way, in a meaningful way, either through open innovation programs or generally through the companies.
I think that the most important thing is to meet each other halfway. Part of it is on us. We are bureaucratic, we have heavy processes, we are slow. There is a lot that we need to overcome. We need to overcome our mindset that we know better. Examples of what we're doing towards that, well, my team is completely dedicated to breaking barriers within Airbus so that we can work with the rest of the world. A lot of our business is inside, changing from the inside. I'll give you an example that might sound trivial, but if you're a startup, you probably know this. To sign an NDA, until a year and a half ago, it took months. Literally, see? It takes months because there is email ping pong between lawyers and technical people and so on, and it's an endless process. We've introduced an electronic NDA that we now sign within 2 days. You enter your address, your name, we validate it, click, it's done. It's a standard one, right? It took a lot internally in Airbus to have that accepted, to have a plain vanilla fair thing, right, that we offer to everyone equally. But I've just spoken to a startup yesterday, right? And I said, okay, we'll do this, it will be done in 2 days, we are at your speed now, right? So let's move. And I got back from them, well, we'll send it to our lawyer and it will go through a legal review and, all right. So I understand startups are worried, right? But again, meet us halfway. So that's one area. The other area is we should learn from each other. We should learn from startups how to do things simpler, quicker, more free, innovative, and all the buzzwords, right? The startups that I worked with over the past 3 years also learned a lot from Airbus. There is a big way from having a good idea or even a good technology to manufacturing something on an industrial scale. And especially learning how to do things at the safety requirements of Airbus. And that is a huge learning opportunity for a startup, because eventually you will grow and you will need to make products that need to plug into a system that, ultimately all of you want airplanes and other flying objects to go safely over your head. So it's, again, there is work on both sides.
Yeah, so this is a topic where you can actually talk ages about.
And I think basically we look at that being in the middle, which I think is part of what you do in the corporates. It's kind of being, we call it the smart curator, but it's to be the marriage counselor of the process, right? It's kind of hold it all together and make sure and help, as Alex said, as many activity between the local ecosystem and your corporates. Thank you very much.